order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mandy, could you please call the roll?
Here.
Randall,
Here.
Butler,
Here.
Dan Stryland,
Here.
Carlstone, and Hopkins are absent.
Okay, the City Council has adopted a code of civility. As elected officials, we pledge to promote civility through extending respect to others, listening to understand and disagreeing without disrespect, engaging collaboratively, and speaking up to address incivility. Also, a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and broadcasted for Pella TV, so anyone who wants to speak tonight, please come to the microphone up here before speaking so that those that are listening at home can hear the comments and see you on the camera. Can I get a motion for approval of the tentative agenda?
So moved.
Van Stryland,
Support.
Branderhorst, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Dan Stryland,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Dion.
Yes.
Motion passed. This time we have opportunity for public forum. Anyone wishing to address council regarding any agenda item, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Well, good evening to half of the citizens of the community of Pella and the city council. My name is Craig Wassenaar. I am here with Bill Molinaire and Rob Bradley on behalf of the Pella Sports Park. We want to thank you for allowing us to share some thoughts on the sports park and to entertain the possibility of building an indoor facility on that land. Over the years, we have had countless meetings with the city council. We've dealt with 3 different mayors and several different city council members. Additionally, we've engaged with many local and non-local entities to support the sports park. And this support came in the way of financial funding from various individuals, as well as having parents and grandparents watch their youngins at the sports park. To be clear, when I say over the years, the sports park board was hopefully pleasantly persistent for over 10 years in achieving our goal of the Pella Sports Park. And we overlooked the possibility of 20 different locations for our park. And I got to tell you, we are very proud of the facility that we currently have. We were constantly asked to narrow our scope, reduce the footprint, and lower our costs. And I'm so happy and again proud of the field of dreams that we created. And one more thing, to be clear, I think it's important to know that an indoor facility was part of our planning right from the get-go. To set the stage, allow me to remind everyone why the Pella Sports Park Board was formed and what our intention was, what our intention is, and what our intentions will always be. Our goals are based on 4 pillars: places for our youth to play, safety and accessibility, community involvement, and economic vitality. First of all, places for our youth to play. For baseball and softball, those 2 sports have been an issue for 30, maybe even 40 years. Well, thanks to the sports park, this problem was solved, not only for baseball and softball, but also for soccer, flag football, and some other sports. But the issue still remains for basketball and some other sports and activities as well. Finding a court to practice in Pella is difficult, if not impossible. Not to mention facilities to play games and hold tournaments. Pillar number 2, safety and accessibility. Safety has always been priority number 1. And this goal was realized for baseball and softball, and the indoor facility, if it comes to happen, would also give kids, parents, and grandparents an excellent venue to play and watch their kids play. Accessibility, as I mentioned earlier, is a significant issue and it's going to do nothing but get worse. Rob and Bill will later discuss the other two pillars. Ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, let me respectfully tell you what a wonderful opportunity we have before us. We have the need, right? That can't be debated. We have the land, and hopefully you'll agree with me that the land that we are asking you to consider would be perfect for an indoor facility, and it fits right in with city plans. And most importantly, we have a group of motivated citizens that are willing to do what needs to happen in order for the park to take place. Thank you for your consideration. Now, Rob and Bill are going to share some thoughts on the same topic.
Thank you, Craig. All right,
Technical difficulties.
that happens all the time, right? So thank you, council, for listening to us this evening. As Craig mentioned, we are excited to be here to talk about the expansion of the sports park that, as Craig mentioned, does include an indoor facility that was part of the original vision. A quality indoor facility that meets the needs of the community, that is quality commensurate with the community, quality that's commensurate with the city that we live in. From the perspective as we look forward, we also want to look at the capacity that we need, as Craig mentioned as well. Not only what we need for current needs, but also what we need for the long term. As we design the sports park, we've got 105 acres, supports the expansion of the softball, baseball fields, multi-purpose fields, and the indoor complex as we're talking about here today. So we realize this is a big investment. There's been a lot of great momentum from a fundraising perspective, and now is the time to move on this. We've built a great first phase with the sports complex that's providing great memories for our youth and our people within the community. Adding this anchor point will be another great addition to provide lifelong memories. I'll turn it over to Bill.
Thank you for your time. Hey, Craig's talked about this. He talked about the 4 pillars, right? And I'm going to touch on one of those pillars, economic development, economic vitality. So how this project delivers that, there's a couple ways. And one way is through bringing people into this community. My wife and I, about 20 years ago, started a basketball tournament in Pella. And when we first started, we had about 16 teams coming to the event. And it grew and grew over time, nothing because of what we did, but because Pella's in a real sweet spot between Des Moines and eastern Iowa. And teams love coming here so that they can compete against different teams. In addition, once people got here, they really loved how they were treated in Pella. The people of Pella, they loved the people of Pella. We heard countless times from referees, coaches, players, how great the people of Pella were. And then those players, the parents, the coaches, referees would spend their in-between games, before or after games, at our businesses, at our restaurants, uptown. And you'd see them with packages from uptown, and something they bought from one of the uptown shops or one of our bakeries. And that event got to grow to a point where we had 180 teams wanting to come to the Pella Basketball Explosion Tournament. We should cut off the entry forms at that point. It probably would have been more than 180 teams. But we really had to cut off the numbers that could participate at the event to 100 teams. And to do that, we had to actually use facilities in Oskaloosa, William Penn, and Oskaloosa Middle School. You add this kind of venue, and you're going to be able to bring hundreds, 125 plus teams. If you look at 180 teams, you're bringing 5,000 people into the venue, into Pella to shop at our shops. In addition, with a venue like this, you can really add to the days that we really can have tournaments in this community. In addition, and importantly, when you think about our businesses in this community and how great companies we have and businesses we have, what do they need? They need people. And to be able to have the talent that these companies need to have to grow, we need to be able to attract and retain them. And how do we do that? It's with the great schools that we have, the great amenities like the Pella Sports Park and this expansion. I know the businesses in this community really stepped up in the fundraising, in the initial phase, and in this phase, putting their money where their mouth was to say, this is something we really want for this community so we can have the vibrant businesses. I know yesterday I was in our executive staff meeting with our executives, and they said, hey, Bill, let them know. We really, Pella Corporation really supports this. And it's something really important to us to remain vibrant. And I know the other businesses in this community have also stepped up saying it's important to them by putting their money where their mouth is and donating to this project. So I really thank the City Council for all that you've done for this community, including the Pella Sports Park. It's wonderful. And really for supporting this expansion, because it's really going to make a difference for our businesses, for our youth, for our family, and all of our people in our community. Thank you.
I'm Dodie Boat, 915 Elm Street, and I want to read a few sentences that were written by Randy Evans, and they were in the Des Moines City View magazine, the November issue. Hello. Anyway, I'm Dodie Boat, and I'm going to read a few sentences that were written by Randy Evans in the Des Moines City View November issue. He is executive director of the Iowa Freedom of Information Council, a nonpartisan nonprofit organization that promotes openness and transparency in Iowa state and local governments. And he says, research studies and polls show that taxpayers believe the importance of government business being conducted in public, not in secret. Research also shows the public appreciates the work done by two-legged watchdogs like journalists and concerned citizens who attend government, board, and council meetings and shine the spotlight on how tax money is spent. The legislature has made it clear conducting government business in public may cause inconvenience or embarrassment to public officials and others, but that is an important way citizens can hold their officials accountable. Thank you for listening.
Alicia Helm from Oskaloosa. Let me set the scene for you. It's December 28, 1846, and Iowa has just become a state. The Prime family has been hard at work in the early 1840s, farming a plot of land in rural Mahaska County that they got as part of the new purchase. They homesteaded the land, and eventually it became theirs. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and now their farm is at risk of being taken for an airport. 6 generations of Primes have owned the land. They were the first to settle there, and they are the only owners to date, and they plan to keep it that way. They gave a small amount of land after a wagon train left 3 people dead due to illness, and that is how the Prime Cemetery started. They are buried in the southeast corner of an unmarked grave. Family military heroes are also buried there. If one would visit the cemetery, I imagine you might hear patriotic songs in your head as eagles fly overhead. One such family member did, in fact, serve in the Civil War. They are fighting to keep it in their family as two cities want to take it from them to construct a regional airport. Tonight, you plan to vote on the reinstated 2080 agreement, and the future of that heritage farm hangs in the balance. Put yourself in their shoes for a moment. Imagine something in your family for close to 181 years and finding out someone else wants it for a project that they won't be able to use. How would you feel? I can assure you, you would fight to keep it in your family. This could end tonight with you voting to leave the 2080 agreement. Oskaloosa has yet to publicly discuss this since it was put on pause in early July of this year. They haven't put their best foot forward, and they should be held accountable for their actions, which are restated in the agreement. Also, the FAA will only fund one project, so fixing yours to build a replacement down the road would probably not sit well with the FFA or give you the funding you desire and need. So in closing, as you go to vote tonight on this issue, I want you to put yourself in the place of those poor landowners facing losing their farms they would like to pass down to the next generation to continue their long storied traditions. Because I can assure you, if this project is continued, we the people who are opposed will be making sure the landowners' voices are heard and continue to be a thorn in your side. We will not stop, and we will continue to fight this project to protect our property rights from corporate fat cats and cities who seem to neglect the will of we the people. Thank you.
Mary Andrina, 604 Liberty, right across the street. I want to just add a few comments to the gentleman who talked earlier about the indoor sports center. And I don't know if any of you saw this, but a few weeks ago, Bruce Borgi, who's one of our Pella historians, had a Facebook post on the Pella on Facebook for the Pella Preservation Trust. And he reminded us of the story of the swimming pool, the outdoor swimming pool, which was finally, after about 20 years of discussion, built in 1937. And it was built because of the collaborative effort of the American Legion, of the Women's Federation Club, the City Council, and also some emergency fund in the state of Iowa. And it was built the same year as a new post office, which had federal funding, as well as in addition to the 20-year-old high school, which I think is kind of interesting because I know the community centers are part of this whole bigger discussion also with the rec center. And I don't know if any of you are here as old as I am, but I took swimming lessons at that pool, that outdoor pool, and it was cold at 9 o'clock in the morning in June, wasn't it? And you know, it served Pella for so many years. And then in 2004, due to the cost of really having to do a lot of upkeep, there was just the decision to go to a new indoor park, which has been a fantastic addition to the city of Pella. Well, in the 70s, my dad thought Pella really needed an indoor swimming pool. And I'm not sure he ever even used it, he ever went in it. But he volunteered to help fund it and to help construct it. And it has served the city of Pella for about 50 years. But we're at a place now where it really isn't conducive to certainly the competitive swimming arena that we know our students could use and Central College could use. And I just remember how my dad always wanted to see Pella move forward. And he wanted to see things that were done for the best of Pella. And I think he would agree that now's the time to do some things in Pella like the indoor rec center, which would include an up-to-date pool, which is good not only for students, but for seniors and for families, and just good for the community. So thank you very much.
Taller, not that tall. Hi, Greg Ebeling, Superintendent of Pella Schools. I also live at 510 Lindbergh Lawn in Pella. I don't know if am I supposed to say that where I live. It's a good everybody else. So, not the first time I've talked to the City Council, first time I've talked to them in a while, but certainly just thank you for your support of the different projects that Pella schools have done through the years, because certainly there's been several, and we've had a lot of projects in about the last 15 years since I've been in town. But what I tell you is that progress to attract people to a community is really critically important to the school. And not only people that will have children in the school, but also people that retire here, volunteer here. As we have many retired volunteers, sometimes they come and substitute teach for us and do different things. So having people a part of the community we know is critical. And so what I'm urging you to do is to allow the rec center project to move forward. I'm really hoping that you allow the bids to be let, that we allow the council to see the full cost of what the rec center would actually be. Certainly, we've done a lot of projects in our school system, and sometimes the estimates are far from the exact what the actual cost of the project will be. Sometimes they're less, sometimes they're more, but it's good to find that out, what contractors actually think about a project. It still gives the council then the optics to look at that later, and then to actually decide whether you're fully moving forward. And so up until the day the bids are accepted, you still have that flexibility, but it does not hurt to allow the project to move forward and to at least get something known on paper that's from actual contractors and bidders. Like some of the other people that spoke about the rec center, super important for economic development, which is critical for the community. And we've just seen that in a lot of our projects, how many people it brings to our community. And we know from the school standpoint, we have kids that are involved in programs all year long, and they're always looking for gym space. And if you would talk to our facility rental person that handles all our facilities at our school system, Ryan Duchatis, Ryan would tell you that gym space is at a premium. And we have our own programs that are usually 7 through 12, but we have a lot of kids that are under 7th grade that want and need facility. We also have a real desire to start a swimming program. Of course, we have not been able to have our own swimming program in Pella, just because the current indoor pool does not allow for diving starts that high school kids have to have, so the depth is not deep enough. And so that's really important that a new pool would allow for those types of things. What I would tell you overall is that the school is super supportive of this. We've been approached, of course, by the mayor to talk about how we can support the program. And the school is not flush with cash to be able to give a lot of dollars to the program, but we are looking at a partnership. And so right now we've got some resolutions and kind of some plans in place to look at having some kind of an agreement with the city to help support the construction of the pool. So obviously if the rec center would move forward, there would be some funding that would come through the school for that to help support those programs. And so I guess in general, I'm just asking you to allow it to move forward, allow it to go to the next step, allow bids to be let, allow the dollars to be known, because I think that's really critical, because until we actually know what the total cost of the project could be, what alternatives can be grabbed a hold of, what changes could be made based upon that. There's always those things that happen, and in projects we've seen that a lot at the school where we've had to change some of the scope of our projects. We've had to have alternates. We've had to right size the projects according to our funding, and so that's not impossible to do. So just please consider that, think about that, let that go forward, and just really help it to support the children and the community of our great city. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Dave Sutphin, 203 Elm Street in Pella. A number of months ago, or a few years ago, I was asked by Mayor DeWard if I would serve on the fundraising committee for the Pella Rec Center. And I want to tell you, without even batting an eye or talking to my wife first, which I'm going to do, I agreed to do this. I've been on different fundraising committees, and To me, this is very important. I coached Little League in this town for 12 years. I was in business uptown for 30-some years. I know Pella, and I know Pella always does it right. And so I want to speak basically on the fundraising part. It is so encouraging to me what has happened to date. Not only are great businesses have stepped forward, but it's been individuals that have stepped forward, and as we call it in fundraising, they stretched a little bit. We ask them to stretch and give what they can. This is very important. It's been enlightening to me what we have accomplished to date. It has been, I can't envision a community this size of 10,000 plus, what we have done in fundraising with the support, of course, of many, many people. And I want to tell you right now that there are people waiting, and I know they have their pledge forms in hand, waiting for the council to make a decision. Because I know for a fact that there's more money out there. And I'm going to give it all I can. I'm 85 years old. And I want to tell you, I got a spot in my gut. You can call it a Dutch front if you want. But a spot that we can make it happen. And it's all about, I'm not going to repeat, but retention, keeping the people we have here and getting more people to move here. I want to thank all you council members, the mayor, city employees for all you do. This is an unbelievable community, so let's keep it moving forward. Thank you very much.
Rhonda Cremone, 510 Broadway Street. I just wanted to thank you so much for being willing to look at amending the ordinance for the historic district overlay zone. That will allow us to apply to be a certified local government, which will allow us access to grants and also access to a wealth of knowledge. I've probably spent the last 10 years trying to learn as much as I can about preservation, but it's by no means anywhere close to a degree. I think maybe a level 100 class, maybe. But this will also allow us access to knowledge from the men and women at the State Historical Office. And it's also helped, I think, in projects such as the community center, while we're talking about different facilities and projects there. The community center focuses more on arts and drama and the after-school program for kids, which is amazing and provides a lot of care for a lot of kids in the community. So I urge you, along with the rec center, to also support the community center. And thank you again for supporting the overlay zone amendment.
I'm Bob Seilstrup, 835 Broadway. So I've been, as long as I've been able to, I've been supportive of this project to have a new rec center. And it always comes down to the three things, worried about our kids, worried about the quality of life in Pella, and thinking about economic development. And so many things have been said by Craig and his other friends about the value of the sports park and of the rec center for kids. But to me, I've got two grandsons, and unfortunately, they're not going to be in Pella to use some of these things. But I have watched them, and I've watched them and their friends, and the temptation to go on their cell phone and their electronic games. And I can tell you, when they get involved in actual physical sporting activities, it brings a wealth of experience, and it gets them off the electronics. And it's so much healthier. Watching them develop friendships where they really talk to their teammates, gives them skills and leadership, learn how to be on a team, and learning how to win and lose graciously. So I think, remember that for the sake of our kids, this is a really good element to include in your thinking. The quality of life, you've heard many things about it. I'm all for it. I think it does great things for it. But the third one on economic development, And I've watched and heard our employers, they're trying to bring young professionals to town, trying to bring more factory workers to town, trying to bring more management style people, bring them here, give them enough incentive, one, to move here and then to retain them. And thinking about the good those people do for the factories, but more importantly, what they do for the town of Pella. All of a sudden, you've got the young families coming in, raising kids and keeping the vitality going through our school systems, our sports system, and in general in the town. So those are exactly the kind of people we want to have come to Pella and to give us the kind of growth we need for our economic vitality. And the other sort of interesting sidelight, this is going to help the development of Pella in that southeast quadrant. And we've got there's land out there available and people are waiting for something like this to really give it a kickstart. And I would think that part of Pella, the old part of Pella, the old industrial part of Pella, so South Pella becomes a part of the vibrancy of Pella rather than, well, we'll go across the tracks. I was a paper boy on that area, and it was kind of a rough part of town in that era back in the 60s. I'd like to see it have the same vibrancy we see in the rest of the town. So I've been supportive of it, and I'd like to have you do the same.
I'm Rob Vanstra from 420 Idaho Drive. Dressed a little bit warm tonight after working after hours on the Mullen Rock preparing for our Christmas market. So that's my shameless plug. Come on down and pleased with the rest of us there. As I look at tonight's agenda, I see three choices: infrastructure, community center, and the sports complex or the indoor sports park. And to me, priority number one has to be that infrastructure. That's the foundation of whatever we have there. But 2 and 3 can be a toss-up. And we've talked about the generosity of the businesses in Pella. I think the city has done a great job in looking for the funding and setting up the conditions for that. Our businesses have contributed mightily, I might add. But now it's time for the citizens in this time of giving to show their generosity and vote with their wallets on generating the money and setting the priorities and the will of our community. So I just lay it before the council tonight to let the citizens and their pocketbooks decide where our initiatives will be prioritized. We know there's projects out there. We know there's more coming in the future. But I would just lay it on the citizens to vote with their pocketbooks. One other thing is I don't want the city to liquidate any assets to pay for a new initiative. I think there's a lot of history in the assets that we currently have, and I hope that the city would not consider liquidating any assets to fund our new initiatives. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay, anyone else?
Eric Van Cleve, 1361 Northwest Drive. One of the things as these discussions have been happening over the last spring and summer that I've regularly reminded people, I think as the parent of 3 kids in a phenomenal school district, I think oftentimes that message is what carries the day. And I said, I think if you're looking at it that way, you're extremely short-sighted. If you go to the pool at 6 to 8 a.m., there are no teenagers there, I can promise you that. From somebody who regularly frequented that for several years, it's packed to the gills. You regularly have lanes that are intended for 1 or 2 people and they have 4 or 5. And these are people who don't have many other options as far as places to go. You know, then you transition from open swim to water aerobics, and there are people waiting in line there. And that's where I don't want to undervalue the weight of what this means to the youth of our community, but as the Vice President of Athletics at Central College, there's not a week that goes by where I don't have retirees and elderly people in the community asking us, can you just, more options for the field house or more options for this or that? And I politely say, that's just not what we're made to do. We're a college running athletic programs and athletic departments, and as much as we would love to be, a steward for more opportunities like that in the community, unfortunately, we're just limited in what we could do. I cannot thank the city council enough for helping us with a pickleball opportunity and an opportunity like that to really collaborate and work together and try to do some creative things to serve, once again, all age groups in this community. And I really look at the rec center as another extension of that. Like I said, I think a lot of the comments have been focused on the youth, and I think that's unbelievably important. And I think it will really serve that. But I think what's being missed is that you could make just as good a case for 85-year-olds and 45-year-olds as you could for 5-year-olds as far as needing something like this. And as a also proud Dutchman that's only been here 18 years, I think what this city really excels at is a community that comes together and really pitches in on things like this, that it's not simply a handout or it's not simply a blank check, but it's different entities of public, private, and private citizens making things like that come together, which I think makes it the most special. Similar to what Greg said, Central College's intentions would be we would be looking at adding both genders of swimming, a men's swimming and women's swimming team, once that's coming on board. We are a nonprofit, and we're pretty good at that. so we will do our darndest to be able to help and facilitate that and pull our part of the bargain, whatever that looks like. But we would be fully supportive of this, and as many have mentioned tonight, would just encourage the process to move forward and just simply know what our options are for something that could really help the community and help all age groups in the community. Thank you.
Jim, you gotta be quicker.
Andrew Green, 760 186th Place. I'm here to urge you to support the Pella Rec Center project. It's a needed amenity in the Pella community. It'll provide new opportunities for health and wellness programming in our community for people of all ages, and it'll provide us the court space we need for our kids' youth programs who play indoor sports and the competition pool for our youth who swim in competitive swim teams. In short, it will provide an indoor facility for basketball, volleyball, and swimming, akin to what the sports park provides for outdoor sports like baseball, softball, and soccer. You've heard a little bit about the economic development opportunities, the opportunities to recruit and retain talent for our major employers here in town. But there are other economic development opportunities here too. Building the rec center will allow Pella to tap into the growing sports market of sports tourism, which according to the Sports Events and Tourism Association had a $90 billion economic impact in the United States in 2021 and generated nearly $13 billion in tax revenue in 2021. Even small sports events can have an impact on our communities. Take, for example, hosting a youth swim meet, which is something that I am very familiar with as my youngest son is a competitive swimmer. According to a study published in 2011 by scholars at the University of Florida, using survey data from spectators at a youth swimming meet, the average total expenditure per travel party for those who made it in a day trip was just about $150, and the average total expenditure for those who stayed overnight was nearly $600. That was almost 15 years ago. If we inflate those dollars using the Consumer Price Index to 2024 values, the day trip expenditure for food and for shopping and other expenses within the community was just under $220, and those who stayed overnight was just under $900. It's important to remember also that youth swim meets are not necessarily small events. It's not atypical for a youth swim meet in the Iowa LSC to attract hundreds of youth swimmers. In fact, the meet my son competed in 2 weeks ago had well over 500 swimmers entered in it, and the meet he'll swim in this weekend has over 700 registered. Those swimmers, along with their parents, their grandparents, and their siblings, will each spend hundreds of dollars in the local community on accommodations, food and beverage, and shopping. Moving the rec center forward will have benefits for the Pella community, both in terms of direct recreational opportunities for local residents and for opportunities to drive economic development in our community. Therefore, I urge you to support moving this vital project forward. I thank you for your consideration.
I have a question for you. How big is that facility that has 700 swimmers? How big?
In Des Moines,
No, how many pools? How big is the facility?
it was one pool,
How,
150-meter pool, 25 yards across.
how many lanes?
It was 10 lanes across.
Okay, thank you.
Jim DeBoer, 212 East 13th Street. I had no intentions of speaking here tonight, but I'm one of those 80-year-old guys that's at the pool. I was there yesterday and I'll be there tomorrow morning. My question is, and I've commented to other swimmers there at the pool, what's going to happen to the old facility? My preference would be if we could keep it going and leave it for us old timers and have the competition pool out there. It takes more money. But anyway, I appreciate it greatly and support it 100%. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Kyle Nelson, 511 Lindbergh Lawn. I just want to echo many of the comments of support for the moving forward with the rec center. I was working last night and I got a phone call from my brother, who's a banker in Spencer. And he had just gotten back from a city council meeting and he says, Kyle, how do you even do it? You know, how do you go to these meetings when nothing gets done? Okay, and that's more of a reflection of Spencer. But I will say that I'm thankful that we're in a community where the city council cares about moving the community forward. And they're willing to take the risks in moving the community forward. And then just one final thing. We hear a lot about Pella being a community. What does the community mean? Okay, it's more than just a place to live, right? If you were up here this past weekend with the Spirit of Pella and the things that they did, that's the Spirit of Pella. Tulip time is the Spirit of Pella. Thursdays in Pella is a community. The events that we host and the stores that make Pella, that's what makes Pella the community that we love to live in. And I'm not even a Dutchman. Right? But I've been here long enough that I think I'm an honorary Dutchman. So let me encourage you that the Pella Rec Center is just one more thing that will bring people together. Okay? It's just one more thing that will allow activities to happen. The community center will allow the Union Street players to keep going. It'll allow the art center to keep going. And it will just allow Pella to be the community that we still desire to live in. Thank you.
Okay, I feel a little bit like an auctioneer going once. Anyone else? All right, we will move on to the rest of our agenda. Can I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Support. Brandon Horst DeYoung, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes, opposed no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Steenstra.
Yes.
Motion passed. Okay, we're moving into a public hearing on ordinance amending city code regarding historic district overlay zones. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item. For those watching at home in Pella Fiber and in attendance, I'd like to direct your attention to the big board for a brief presentation on this item. As Mayor DeWart stated, tonight's public hearing is on a text amendment. The ultimate purpose of this is to allow the city to apply, become a certified local government. Really, the text amendment is relatively simple. It deals with the design standards for our 2 historic districts that we have in our community. And as you can see, we've crossed out the section that has, it clarifies that any housing structure that would be constructed, so that the new housing structure that would be constructed in these districts will require a design review permit. The standards that we're going to use is the interior standards for rehabilitation guidelines for historic buildings, and this is federal standards that it has, and that's going to be one of the key items or requirements rather for a certified local government. So the text amendment we're presenting this evening is relatively simple and straightforward on it. Just consolidates, makes clear that we're going to use the federal standards for reviewing design review permits for any new housing structure within these districts. It is important to note, Mr. Mayor, that the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed and approved this ordinance at their latest meeting, and staff is recommending approval this evening.
All right, thank you, Mike. Any written comments, Mandy?
No written comments.
Okay, council comments?
I just wanted to commend Rhonda. She has persevered on this for 10 years. She has been in hundreds of meetings and has taken a very prudent approach to this, and I applaud you. You have been one of the people that Dodie spoke to earlier. You came often and you observed and you spoke and you educated us. And I look forward to being a certified local government so that we can bring in more funding for the restoration of our historic buildings. Thank you very much.
Okay, anything else, council? Any member of the audience have a comment on this subject? All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Support. Branderhorst and Stryland, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Branderhorst.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to the ordinance number 1054 entitled an ordinance amending sections 165.13.5.2 and 165.13.5.5 of the City Code of the City of Pella, Iowa for the purpose of updating state agency information and amending approval criteria for historic district overlay zone review. Anything to add, Mike?
No, sir.
Okay, can I get a motion for approval?
So moved. I'll support it.
Van Strylen, Branderhorst, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Branderhorst.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Motion passed. Okay, moving on to resolution number 6778 entitled Resolution of Pella City Council approving final plat of Prairie Ridge Townhomes, Plat 1, City of Pella, Iowa. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item. Mayor Ward stated during this evening is a final plat for the Prairie Ridge Townhome developments on approximately 4.5 acres of land. And what the developer is proposing is ultimately 38 buildable lots. It's staff's understanding that roughly 20 units would be built in the initial phase of the project. Just to orientate everyone, the area that we're talking about is the new Fifield Road extension is located right here. The Prairie Ridge residential subdivision that we've recently fully occupied now is roughly approximately 90 single-family homes. It's located over here. The Kading residential subdivision is located right here. And this yellow highlighted area is the location for the new townhome development. Now, it is important to note that staff believes the final plat that we're considering this evening meets the requirements of the city's zoning code, as well as the subdivision code, and we are recommending approval this evening. The Planning and Zoning Commission also reviewed this matter at their September 23rd meeting and unanimously approved the final plat as well. It is also important to note that the city attorney has reviewed and approved has reviewed the required final plat legal documents as well. So once again, Mr. Mayor, we are recommending approval this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Support.
DeYoung, Branderhorst, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Branderhorst.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to resolution number 6779 entitled Resolution Accepting Public Improvements for Prairie Ridge Townhome Sanitary Sewer. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item. As Mayor Ward stated, what this resolution would do is accept the public improvements that were associated with the Prairie Ridge Townhome development that we just approved the final plat for. And ultimately, what this resolution would do is accept 711 linear feet of new sanitary sewer line. We do have an overview of the proposed development as well, and the sanitary sewer line is the green line that you see right here in the development as well. It is important to note that the engineer for the development has certified that the public improvements are substantially complete and comply with the city's approved plans and city standards, and we've also received the necessary maintenance bonds, and we are recommending approval this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Vanderhorst, DeYoung, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Randall.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving to resolution number 6780, entitled Resolution Authorizing an Agreement for the Grid Resilience Grant for the Automated Metering Infrastructure Project. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Once again, I'd like to direct everyone's attention to the big board for a presentation on this item. As Mayor Ward stated, we have some good news this evening. What this resolution does is authorizes the mayor to sign a grant agreement for the automated metering infrastructure project that's being proposed by the city of Pella. This is commonly referred to as the AMI project. And as the council is aware, but maybe those watching at home and in attendance aren't necessarily up to speed on this project, this is the other half of the Pella Fiber project. If you recall, we've installed approximately 90 miles of fiber optic lines throughout our community. Those fiber optic lines are currently used to bring the citizens of Pella high-speed internet access. The electric component of the project is going to use those same fiber optic lines. It's going to bring city smart meter technology. When we talk about smart meter technology, it has two aspects that are going to be improvements or actually assets for the city of Pella. First and foremost, it's a reliability issue in the city, so we'll know instantly when power is out, be able to locate those power outages, and we believe when it does occur, we're going to be able to restore the power more quickly than what we currently have, which is always a key issue anytime you're dealing with reliability. The second issue is that by adopting smart meter technology, we'll be able to offer time and use metering on this, or time and use rates. We believe by making people better consumers of their energy use ultimately can lead to a savings in power supply costs for the city's electric utility. Now that's important. Anytime you talk about electric utilities, approximately 80% of our cost is related to power supply and transmission related expenses. So when you talk about the ability to lessen those costs, that's a true savings for the city of Pella. Now the great news with this and what the grant agreement is with the Iowa Department of Economic Development, the grant requires approximately 23% local match. We had previously approved an AMI budget that was 100% local funded for $2 million. Our grant amount that we're considering that we ultimately, that the mayor hopefully will be able to sign for us, is just shy of $1,551,000, which means our local match would be $449,000. So with this, Mr. Mayor, we're very excited about this potential grant, and we are recommending approval this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Ms. Strylen,
Support.
Vanderhorst, discussion?
I have a question on the usage that's coming, the time and usage. Well, you're gonna publish that schedule, right?
Oh, yeah.
Schedule.
Councilmember Butler, I'll let you finish asking your complete question, but the answer is yes. In fact, before we adopt time and use metering and time and use rates, what's typical for electric utilities is we'll go through a cost of service study. And the cost of service study will actually identify the various classes and the cost the city incurs to serve those various classes. So the time and use rates that will be proposed to council will be based on cost of service to the citizens of Pella, or the ratepayers of the electric utility. So the answer is yes, we'll publish the rates, but there'll be considerably more detail even before you get to that point.
Okay, thank you.
So I assume that someone did a lot of work to secure this grant. I know Nate's here, so this is a big deal. This is a really big deal. We've had this in our capital improvement budgets now for a while. So for us to go from $2 million down to $450,000, that's a significant savings to the city. So thank you, Nate. I'm sure you did a lot of the work on this, and there's a lot of benefits to getting this done. And so to be able to do it at this kind of cost is great news. So thank you. All right. Anything else? All right, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Van Stuylen,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on, resolution number 6781, entitled Resolution Fixing Date for a Public Hearing on the Proposal to Amend City Code by repealing Chapter 158 Building Code as adopted by the City of Pella, Iowa, and in lieu thereof adopting the 2021 edition of the International Building Code with revisions and providing for publication of notice thereof. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Actually, what we have this evening is one presentation for the next three council items, for the next three resolutions. And what we're actually doing with this, and really the only action that we're taking with each of these resolutions, is we're simply establishing December 17th as the public hearing date for each of these proposed code adoptions. And what we're going to be doing is upgrading or proposing to update the city's building codes from 2015 approximately up to 2021, with the exception of the electrical code to be 2020. So once again, for all these resolutions that we have on the agenda this evening, or these next three resolutions, we're simply establishing the public hearing date as December 17th, and there'll be considerably more details shared on 17th during the respective public hearings. Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
Support.
DeYoung, Branderhorst, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Do we have any idea how much this would raise construction costs? Is there any background at all?
As far as, we'd be happy to look further into that, Councilmember DeYoung, but I think the real issue is when you look at updating the city's building codes on it, first of all, it's a safety item, so we need to consider that in effect too. In addition, when you look at developers, particularly those developers that operate in multiple communities, it's quite common that currently other communities are in the 2020, 2021 building codes. So anytime you have differences in years, there's always causes confusion and additional cost on it as well. So we really feel that updating the city's building codes, A, it's a safety issue, but B, it really streamlines, particularly for those developers that operate in multiple communities as well. But we can look into that and have that information ready during the public hearings on the 17th.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? All right, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Van Stuylen.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on, resolution number 6782, entitled Resolution Fixing Date for a Public Hearing on the Proposal to Amend City Code by repealing Chapter 157 Residential Code as adopted by the City of Pella, Iowa, and in lieu thereof adopting the 2021 edition of the International Residential Code with revisions and providing for publication of notice thereof. We've already talked about it, so is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Support.
Branderhorst DeYoung, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Randall,
Yes.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Van Stuylen.
Yes.
Moving to resolution number 6783, entitled Resolution Fixing Date for a Public Hearing on the Proposal to Amend City Code by repealing Section 159.01, Adoption of National Electric Code, and Section 159.02, Revisions as adopted by the City of Pella, Iowa, and in lieu thereof adopting the 2020 edition of the National Electric Code with revisions and providing for publication of notice thereof. Can I get a motion for approval?
So. Support.
Van Stuylen, DeYoung, any discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Van Stuylen,
Yes.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion passed. Resolution number 6784, entitled Resolution Approving an Amended and Restated Agreement Pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 28E with the City of Oskaloosa for the South Central Regional Airport. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Once again, I'd like to direct everyone's attention to the big board for a presentation on this item. It is important to note the agreement that we are considering this evening is an amended and restated agreement for the 28E that we have for the regional airport. We discussed this on November 19th. There is no new information this evening. It's the same agreement that we discussed on November 19th. One item that I wanted to state is there's really two primary reasons why we're amending the agreement. The first of all is to be so that the agreement reflects the recent Supreme Court decision concerning the termination provision of the previous 2080 agreement, which was ruled unconstitutional by the Iowa Supreme Court. The rest of the agreement was fully enforced and upheld with the verdict. And so what we've done is we made some amendments. We've made the necessary revisions to be reflective of the Supreme Court decision. The second reason why we're amending this, and this is probably really the more important reason that we have, is the amendment that we're considering this evening places this project on hold. You recall this last July, we received confirmation from the South Central Regional Agency Board that they were unable to proceed with the project. And the reason they were unable to proceed is to date, the SCRA has required approximately 378 acres property for this project. It is important to know that this was made through voluntary negotiations with the property landowners. Now, to build the regional airport, it takes approximately 600 acres between fee title purchases and allegation easements. So they're approximately 220 acres short. So this yellow highlighted area is the area of property that the South Central Regional Airport Agency currently owns. Once we receive confirmation that they're unable to proceed forward with the project, it is important that the agreement is amended to be reflective of that. And what we are waiting on with this, particularly with direction from the Federal Aviation Administration on their desire for the land with it. And so what we've done with this agreement is it officially places the project on hold. We're proceed with the project, it would take approval of both the Pella City Council and the Oskaloosa City Council on this as well. Now, it is important to note, once we receive direction from the FAA on this, whether they instruct the agency to sell the land or it has some other purpose for the land, for instance, the rental income could be used to support the two respective municipal airports, the agreement may need to be further modified in the future, but for now, places it on hold. And it's really on hold until we receive direction from the Federal Aviation Administration. So before we go on, is there any question of why this is necessary? And it really deals with the land that the SCRA currently owns, which is 378 acres, and we're pending and waiting further direction from the Federal Aviation Administration.
So, in effect, we're not acquiring any more land. So any landowner presently, this lady had a question about her farm or the farm being in danger of being taken, not gonna happen.
Not with this, no. The agreement is right now, if you look at the current 2080, it instructs the South Central Regional Airport Agency to construct a regional airport. That's why this amendment is necessary, because it places the project on hold. And what we're trying to do is comply with the Federal Aviation Administration. It's also important to note today the project's received over $5 million in federal grants. So it's imperative that we have further direction from the Federal Aviation Administration, particularly on the property that's been acquired to date. So that, no, the answer to that is the project would be, if the council approves this and the Oskaloosa City Council approves this, the project would be officially on hold.
Thank you for asking that.
Okay, so do I have a motion for approval?
So,
Support.
Horst DeYoung, any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Motion passed. All right, bear with me as I read this one. Ordinance number 1053 entitled, an ordinance providing that general property tax is levied and collected each year on all property located within the Prairie Ridge West Urban Renewal Area in City of Pella, Iowa, County of Marion, State of Iowa, by and for the benefit of the State of Iowa, City of Pella, County of Marion, Pella Community School District, and other taxing districts, be paid to a special fund for payment of principal and interest on loans, monies advanced to, and indebtedness, including bonds issued or to be issued, incurred by the city in connection with the Prairie Ridge West Urban Renewal Area, the Prairie Ridge West Urban Renewal Plan. This is the third reading. Is there anything to add, Mike?
No, Mr. Mayor, I believe you've summarized it quite well on this, and if the council has questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on this proposed ordinance.
All right, can I get a motion for approval?
So moved. Support.
DeYoung, Van Strylen, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Van Strylen.
Yes.
Horst.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Or jump.
Yeah, no, you didn't. That's what we need, a motion to adopt the ordinance. Van Strylen,
Support.
Butler. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Stryland,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Vito,
Yes.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to ordinance number 1055, entitled an ordinance amending municipal telecommunication utility rates in the city of Pella, Iowa. This is the first reading. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item. As Mayor DeWart stated, what this ordinance would do is increase rates for programming for Pella Fiber on our cable television channels. It is important to note, since Pella Fiber began operations in 2021, we have not had any previous rate increases. This rate increase that's proposed this evening entirely deals with the television programming provided by Pella Fiber. And I'll go a step further. The proposed increases that you see here basically bring the rates up to the amount that we pay the content providers to provide television on Pella Fiber. So this would be for our cable basic plus, this would be channels such as ESPN, the Marquee Sports Network that we have here. So the increases that you see here is what the fees are that the city pays for each one of these programming packages on it as well. And it's very important to note that is the reason for the increases. Now with this, Mr. Mayor, we're hopeful that this would cover the programming cost in providing television services on this, but we want to make sure that it's understood that it just relates to the television aspect of it, and it's necessary just to cover the city's programming cost for providing television service to our customers. So I don't believe I have anything else to add, Mr. Mayor, but we are recommending approval of this ordinance this evening.
All right, can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Support.
DeYoung, Brandenhorst, discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Vito,
Yes.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Van Stryland.
Yes.
Motion passed. We'll welcome Councilman Carlstone to the meeting. All right, can I get a motion for approval of abstract of bills number 2164?
Move to approve and issue warrants.
Support.
Brandenhorst and Stryland, any discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Vanderhorst.
Yes.
Van Stryland,
Yes.
Vito,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Carlstone.
Yes.
Motion passed. Any council member have any other business you'd like to have addressed this evening?
I just wanted to thank Denny Byard. I don't know if he's still here. Is he still here? I want to thank you for addressing all of the copious questions I've had for you over the last week concerning some of our water issues. I know that there were 499 letters that went out to our city residents notifying them that they have pipes that have issues. And Denny has been working on this and has been just Herculean in his efforts to find solutions and answer questions for people like me who is getting questions from citizens. We have other issues with our water that we need to address, but I think in full awareness, we need to be aware that there are people that have some pipes leading into their homes that they will have to be addressing, and we in turn will have to be addressing that issue as well. So thank you, Denny. I'll try not to bug you for the rest of the week.
I appreciate the compliment, but I can't sit there and take it. It's actually Brent Schroeder that's answering the phone and taking.
But I mean, you're taking my questions, which yeah.
To follow that up, Denny, have all of the home letters gone out?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, the week of November 4th, 5th, 499 went out. We are discovering there's a few people that have built newer homes that have reused old services that may have been there in the early 1900s. And that's not good, because we're finding out they are not copper. So we're finding a few odds and ends here and there. So there'll be a few more letters going out in that regard. And on the unknowns, we continue every day. We're still investigating those to see if we can determine lead, galvanized, or copper.
Are those like vacant lots or houses that have been bulldozed or what?
No, what fooled us is it'd be a house that might be built in the 70s, and you would not expect that type of material. You would think it was copper. but there must have been a house there before or some kind of structure that had a water service, and they somewhat cheated and used the old service.
Are you finding a concentration in one particular area as opposed to another?
Well, it's for the most part. I think we're looking at the cutoff. There's people nationally helping us too, 1960, 65 and older.
I guess I was
If they're original.
in our community, in the map, in the zonal radius. Are you finding zone or Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, Ward 4? Is it all over the gamut?
To better answer that question, I don't know, Mandy, if Brent's maps went live. We're actually working on a map plotting those. So that is going to be available eventually here on the city website.
Okay.
I don't know that we went live with that yet.
Denny, is it a fair statement that a majority of them are within the 4-block radius of the downtown? Is that a concentration?
They're scattered though too. Downtown is heavy lead, no doubt. A lot of the commercial areas lead. And like I say, the pre-1960s, which had a lot of these down there, 320s, that type of things.
Thank you, Denny. And this is the last thing I'm going to say. I think everyone spoke about the kind of community we are, and I don't disagree at all. But I think it's really important for all of us to understand, for those 500 people that got that letter, they're afraid right now. But we have people like Denny and his staff that are going to see to it that this is remedied. But again, I just think they took a very bad situation and they're handling it with grace and dignity. And I know that the rest of us will pledge to do the same thing and try to eradicate this. Thanks, Denny.
Okay, anything else, council? All right, any member of the public have any other business you'd like to have addressed? If so, please step to the microphone, state your name and address. Please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Ann Summit, 1435 Hazel Street here in Pella. First of all, I do want to preface, I am not against a rec center. I think we need it. The thing is, I remember back a number of years ago when we had a bond referendum up for Jefferson Intermediate now, at that point it was Jefferson Elementary. It failed the first time when it went to a vote because it was too over the top. And it had to go back and be cut and cut. Back at the second time it was voted on, it went through. I think that's something we need to remember. Opulence versus functionality. But that's not what I'm up here about. First of all, I'm up here because I am feeling torn. I feel like I'm losing friends. I feel like this community is dividing. And I don't like the feel here. So I found an article, and it's called Iowans for Tax Relief. It's by John C. Lozina, and it's dated November 19 of this year. Basically, it's a quote. Elected officials are continuing their economic central planning efforts by subsidizing well-connected corporations and real estate developers with taxpayers' money. Despite decades of real-world evidence that these deals do little to attract or keep companies in the city. Economic developments in Des Moines run far deeper than just one project, as deals with promised benefits keep failing to cover very real costs. Local governments must balance their budgets, and a dollar that's lost to subsidized office building or stadium is a dollar that cannot be spent on public services like police, fire departments, roads, sewers, parks, or libraries. Elected officials must reflexively, try to say that 3 times, complain that state tax cuts are to blame for budgetary belt-tightening. But their behavior suggests that they only feel that way about tax breaks for homeowners. It's just common sense. This is still a quote. If local governments believe they must roll back basic public services next year because they're collecting less in property taxes from local homeowners, then they shouldn't be spending more money on speculative economic development projects. End of quote. This is just some food for thought in our community.
And I know also that some people had actually been going through and saying this is an essential service. I went and found the government's essential services online. It's not an essential service. So we're all in this together. Each of you are elected to represent all of the citizens of Pella and keep our community fiscally sound. We must be able to discern what is a need versus what is a want. So please, no more division in this community. Let's work together. And honestly, I think we deserve to vote on this whole project. We haven't been allowed to, and it's just frustrating. We could vote on Jefferson Intermediate and have it not passed the first time. That was a lot less than this is. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Dwight Young, 2509 Schulte Straat. At the last council meeting, I think it was 430, perhaps 450,000 was approved to tear down the Second Reformed Church. Since we're running at an annual budget deficit, I wondered if there was any immediate need to do that, and perhaps we could save the money just by not tearing it down at the present time. Is there any plan to use that space?
No specific plan at this time.
Let's just save the money and leave the church.
Okay, anyone else?
Anita Fisher, 1546 Pleasant Drive. I would like to actually echo what Anna said, and I am also not against a rec center. What I am hoping for is a sensible rec center that we can afford. As a concerned citizen, I've spent the past few weeks studying Pella's fiscal year 24-25 CIP Capital Improvement Program and Budget Book. It emphasizes three main objectives for our community. Quote, growth in an orderly and planned manner. Number 2, providing long-range financial planning. And number 3, design a plan which provides efficient, coordinated, timely, and economic public facilities that are sensitive to the expressed and implied needs of the community. Unquote. While looking at Pella's needs, I noted that it lists over 60 items that were given a priority of very important and critical, totaling millions of dollars in funding and possible future debt repayment. Unfortunately, there are other items that should be added to the list, as a number of Pella citizens recently were identified as having lead pipes. This will require replacement at a substantial cost. The well-being of our citizens should always be top priority. Maintaining drinking water, replacing old sewer lines, repairing sidewalks, fixing cracks and uneven tripping hazards, streets in disrepair, just to name a few. While I appreciate the attempts to resolve some of the street problems, these Band-Aid fixes are extremely temporary. The CIP explains external issues impacting the budget, which include state property tax reform and state funding decreases. It has been mentioned recently in your meetings that new property tax legislation caps the increase in the city's general operating tax levy, which will present challenges in funding, services, and projects. The state is also phasing out municipal assistance for previously approved property tax legislation, which would, quote, have a significant impact on the city's general fund, unquote. While this has the potential of slowing down projects and other amenities, your job as elected leadership is to not only be cautious in development of the city, but to be financially prepared for the expected and unexpected, and to care for all aspects of our town as stated by the three main objectives quoted from the CIP above. This is where much of the general fund comes into play. Constantly depleting this fund over time will lead to consequences. For example, it has been shown in prior budget sessions that the golf course requires yearly financial assistance of approximately $300,000 to keep it afloat. There are identified major projects for irrigation replacement and other work in the next few years. The proposed Pella Indoor Rec Center analysis quoted an expected operating subsidy of around $400,000 to $515,000 per year. Where are these funds coming from? It has been mentioned that the loss tax sharing with Marion County needs to be renewed, or the state could revise that law to change how sales tax is utilized. If that would be the case at the local level, the city could lose another approximate $300,000 or more per year. That's a total of $1 million per year that is not assured to us in the future. My concern is this: to focus on priority needs first. How long can our town successfully survive and thrive when our purse strings need to be pulled so tight? Prudence is the ability of being careful, thoughtful, and judicious when making decisions and taking actions. As you consider the many pending programs and projects, we are asking you to use that kind of leadership in your decision making. Thank you.
Right, yeah, 2509 Scottish Drive. Is there any word when the Union Street project might be complete? It seems to be taking long.
You'll have to talk to Denny.
They put blankets on it last Wednesday. All the trenches, compaction have been tested and passed. And they're cutting grade today to final grade to work it tomorrow to get it to pass. Once it passes, we'll spread rock and the sub drains, and the hope is with the forecast, they're gonna pave it on the Saturday. And we even have a couple days after that, we may not have to put blankets back on. So that's the plan, pave it Saturday. And if everything goes well.
And then when would it be open to the public?
We like to let them cure for at least a week, 8 days, somewhere in there.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, that's the end of our regular agenda. We're going to move into policy and planning. We have 3 items to discuss. We're going to start with our long-term facility plan update. Before Mike has a presentation, I'll give some of the details of where we're at. But before we do that, I kind of want to go through a review of where we've been, how we got to where we are, and what we are looking at doing. So, we are planning on bringing a vote at our next meeting on the 17th, whether to continue the project, the rec center project, by going to bids. And so this discussion is kind of an update before that. So I want to go back and review a little bit where we're at, how we got. There's been a lot of challenges along the way that we've had to deal with. And so, so this plan started in April of 2022. And the city council at that time passed a resolution accepting a long-term facility plan that at the time was estimated to cost $45 million. That included a new recreation center, an indoor recreation center, redoing and expanding the current community center, and also extending Washington Street, University Street, from where it ends now on the east side of town to the next mile. So that was a $45 million project. Council voted to move that project forward. So there were some things that had to be done. Oh, and the plan included funding for this project of 50% of the local option sales tax moving forward. The issuance of a $17 million bond to help pay for these projects, and the debt service would come from future local option sales tax revenues. So From there, council approved that plan at that time in April. And so the first thing that had to be done was to develop a plan for a facility. The community center, there had been work done for, I don't know, Patty's here, I don't know when they started talking about it, but and I have no idea why nothing was ever done with it, but it never got done. I certainly, when I was elected, I didn't anticipate having to deal with the community center because I knew they'd been talking about it for years, but it never got done. So part of the plan was to construct a new indoor rec facility, to do some kind of addition to the community center, and just to bring it back to where it needed to be because it needs work. So that was a $45 million plan. So we needed to get an architect, hire an architect engineer firm to start planning the facility, the new facility. So we did that. Council approved a contract with Shive Hattery. I guess what I should say prior to that, there was a committee of 11 citizens of this community that were put on a team to help design and plan the facility based on community needs for a facility like this. So that 11-person group, their first task was to select an architect engineering firm, which they did. They got a few requests for proposals, or put out a request for proposals, got some proposals. That group decided on Shive Hattery. As the city council then, we went into we signed an agreement with Shive Hattery, and I believe based on the cost of the facility, the initial contract for that was, what, $3.8 million, I believe, about $3.8 million to the architect engineering firm that would take the project to completion. That's obviously there's steps along the way. So that was done. City council approved that plan, approved that contract, and so they got to work. The other thing that had to happen in 2022 was we had to extend the local option sales tax because it was expiring in December of 2023. And so we needed to, as a community, have a referendum to extend that. We had no less than 10 meetings talking about this facility, and we have never wavered from, council never wavered from saying that $17 million of this project was going to be paid for by a local option sales tax. Before we went to vote as a community, very clear, very transparent. We had many public meetings that $17 million of a bond issue was going to be used to build this facility. And then at that time, we were looking for maybe some other governmental help and private. When we passed the plan in April, we had $12 million of private donations already pledged for the project. We had a $17 million bond, so that's $29 million, and we also, as a city, identified $5.5 million of cash on hand that we could use for the project. So if my math's correct, that was $34.5 million that we had funding source for the facility. So it was important that we pass and extend the local option sales tax, which we did. And I'm not going to go back and rehash that whole process. There was a concerted effort to defeat it. But the only thing I would say about that, part of what I want to do tonight is call out some misinformation that still exists. I still hear this once in a while from people that there was somehow we passed this this extension of the local option tax, somehow we snuck something in. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a little research to see what. So I went back to the county website, went to the special election, printed off the ballot language that anybody that went to vote that day when they walked in the booth to vote, had access to the ballot language. And I remember having the conversation right here. I think Hopkins was sitting where Spencer's sitting, and then Councilman Banstra was next to him. When we started to talk about the local option sales tax, Kelvin's suggestion was that we not put, you have to declare how much property tax relief is going to be used for property tax relief, which, you know, prior to we had a 20% number in there. Kelvin said, why would we, force any future councils to have a number? Because you can, basically city council has the authority and the right to spend that local option. Once the citizens approve it, city council has the right and the duty to spend it how they see fit. So the ballot language, just let me read it. A local sales and services tax shall be imposed in the city of Pella that will continue without repeal of the existing local sales and services tax at the rate of 1% to be effective on January 1, 2024 until an automatic repeal date of December 31, 2043. Revenues from the local option sales tax and sales and services tax are to be allocated as follows. 0% shall be used for property tax relief. The specific purposes for which the revenues shall otherwise be expended are 100% shall be used for any lawful purpose, including but not limited to indoor recreation facilities, other recreational facilities, community center facilities, infrastructure improvements, other community betterment projects designated by the city council, retirement of debt incurred for any such purposes, and any lawful purposes. So that's pretty clear language there. So when somebody says something got snuck in, I don't quite believe that. The other thing, and again, I'm not going to go through and rehash this, but this, I went to the town crier and I got a little archive of some ads that were ran. This ad was a full-page ad ran in the town crier by, was paid for by called Paid for Concerned Citizens of Pella. I have no idea who the group was. Putting it out to vote no. Okay. There was also a second whole column page saying if we pass the lost tax, that means we're going to spend it on a rec center. So for anybody to tell me, and there's still talk of this, that there was some kind of hidden agenda here, it just doesn't hold water and it's not true. So that's one thing. So we had the referendum in September of 2022, it passed. So if you're mad about it passing, sorry, it passed. The citizens of Pella said, we want to impose this tax for the next 20 years. And city council, you're going to spend it and can spend it in these ways. So it passed. So that was an important step because we anticipated that we were going to use that revenue stream to help pay for a new recreation center. So we signed a contract with Shive Hattery to start the process. They worked with our group of 11 citizens. They put in a whole lot of time and effort for the rest of 2022, and by the end of 2022, the group, along with Shive, had a plan in place. We had some public meetings. People were able to comment on it, got public input. That was the plan that was in place. Also, what happened at the start of 2023 was a fundraising committee was formed to start fundraising because we knew we were going to need some more money to pay for it. Obviously, you know, everybody knows what happened with construction inflation over that time. So our original guesstimate of the cost increased significantly. So we knew that we needed some more money. And so a fundraising effort was kicked off in 2023. I might add, very successfully. We've gone from and Mike will have more details, but we've gone from $12 million of private pledged money at April of 2022 to now we're close to 17 million. That's a pretty significant increase. A whole list of people and companies that have pledged support for this project. The other thing I would like to say is there's been some public comments that when we talk about budget, we've had a couple discussions about budget, and Mike's doing a great job of letting us know that we're going to have some budget challenges moving forward into the future. So the money that has been spent on Shive Hattery for the communities or for the rec center, and who's our architect on the community center? Shimmer. There's been some money spent on that. None of that has anything to do with the general fund budget. That money is in all those cost figures. So when we say it's a $40 million project, the rec center, all of the architect engineering fees are included in that number. So that spending has had nothing to do with any budget deficits or surpluses or anything. We identified as a city council $5.5 million to spend. We've used that money. We've transferred money from the electric department to make those payments. So those costs have nothing to do with our budget, and we'll talk more about that. So I want to make sure that people understand that to say that is cause of our budget, it is problems or whatever you want to call them, it's not true. It simply is not true. And so we continued on with fundraising. There was a lot of, there's a lot of things that have to happen and work for a project like this to come together. And so we ended up, by February of 2024, had our Shive Hattery had bid documents ready to go. We were going to go to bid on the project, and a city council did not move it forward at that time. We reconvened in July and more discussions and said that we would resurrect the possible going to bid this December. And so that's where we're at. That's how we've gotten there. I might add the infrastructure part of this was a $7.7 million for a new road, some sewer and other things that have to happen. We were able to secure $1 million grant through the federal government, through Representative Miller Meek's office. And so we have $1 million HUD grant waiting for us that has to be used on the road. The other thing I might add, there was a lot of talk about we were going to have to use eminent domain for the road and all this. Didn't happen. Just another example, there was potentially one landowner that maybe was going to fight the right-of-way. I got to say thank you to Vermeer Manufacturing. They worked with that landowner, did some land swap, and so we have all of the land for the right-of-way for the road. We have willing landowners to sell that right-of-way. We haven't finished that process yet because whenever you get the federal government involved with this HUD grant, there's some things that we have to do. So we should be able to do that soon. The other thing is we had asked the county to help pay for the road. They declined to help us. They would have paid for it by probably creating a urban renewal district out there because there's a bunch of development that'll happen once we have the road, and be able to pay for it with those revenues, create a TIF district there to pay for that road. We will do the same thing as the city of Pella. We'll do this, create the urban renewal and collect the money off of the new development that's going to happen once we have the road. And as far as the road is concerned, if you ever go out to the sports park, we need that road very badly. Whether we do a rec center or not, we need that road. to give access to our current sports bar. And so that's where we're at. Mike's going to go through in some detail about the financing and all of that, so that when we come back for a meeting on the 17th, we're going to have a resolution to move the project to the bid phase. So I'll turn it over to Mike to walk us through that.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and I'd like to once again direct everyone's attention to the big board for a lengthy presentation on this item, but an important one to the community. And really the intention of this session, it's an informational session, and we want to do, well, the intention is just to prepare council to make a decision on these projects on December 17th. I would like to mention that the decision council will be asked about is whether each of these projects is going to be proceeding to the construction bid phase project for the projects. And seeking construction bids does not obligate the city to build the project. The key differences with seeking bids, what allows the city to do is have hard construction costs in making decisions on the projects. And that's going to be the decision that we'll make on December 17th. But we thought it was important to at least provide an update where we stand financially with these projects. There's been some significant developments with each one of the projects that we're going to be reviewing this evening. I would also like to mention that as you'll see that some of these items are still somewhat of a work in progress and things may change slightly by the time we get to December 17th. And most importantly this evening, as we go through the presentation, there's a lot of details this evening. I'm going to be moving relatively quick on items that we've covered previously, but if I move too quick, please slow me down and feel free to interrupt me at any point to ask your questions. So let's go ahead, Mandy, if we could. I thought it would be a good idea to start where we ended up with the last time we talked about the facility plan. That was on July 2nd of this year, and if you recall, council established what we would call parameters for the facility plan, that if projects met each one of these parameters, then we would see construction bids for the projects. And it's probably the most important one that we say, when I say it's still a work in progress, the deadline date for the projects to get the fundraising totals to me or the city administration was December 3rd, which is today as well. So we're actively working on these projects. Please keep that in mind. And once again, some of the final numbers or what's presented on the 17th may change slightly from what's presented this evening. But it is important to note the second item, just for everyone's understanding, that when it comes to the final design of these projects, that is going to be up to council to determine the final design and the size and scale of the projects. And with that, equally important to note, we previously spent a lot of time over the last 3 years talking about the city's financial commitment. What we have is city cash contributions up to $5.5 million for the plan. That is coming from the city's electric utility, which we believe the utility has adequate reserves to fund the city's long-term facility plan to the tune of upwards to $5.5 million. Mayor DeWart stated what we previously discussed was issuing a local option sales and services tax bond of up to $17 million in support of the projects as well. On July 2nd, the infrastructure estimate that we had for the University Street and Baseline Drive and associated infrastructure, that bond issue was estimated at $6.6 million. The figures that we're going to be seeing tonight is slightly higher than that. That's just due to revised cost estimates on this as well. These last two items, we're going to be spending a considerable amount of time on this, but it is important to note, we talk about, and I would be remiss if I didn't state that there's been a significant fundraising efforts in this community. And we're very thankful for the funds that have been raised for each one of these projects because they're significant this evening on this as well. But as we talked about it, when you look at the construction of these projects that would likely occur over 2 years, a lot of these pledges would be paid over the course of 5 years. So what we had in there was a requirement that the private funds or pledges that would for these projects would need to be financed by a non-city entity. And we're going to be covering this in detail this evening. And finally, the last thing that we had was property taxes, and specifically it was an obligation of the projects that we had that the project operating subsidies need to be revenue neutral that we presented this evening. We're going to go in and explain the reason or the rationale for that requirement that we imposed on July 2nd as well. So Mandy, let's go ahead, please. One of the items that we have to consider, in not only in planning for recreation centers, community centers, and the associated infrastructure associated with these projects, is that planning for this, they both have to work both for the needs of the citizens, but they have to work financially for the city of Pella as well. And we want to rest assured that we're going to plan these projects in a financially comprehensive manner as well. For several years, we've implemented long-term financial planning for the city of Pella. These projects will be planned in a very similar manner as previous projects as well. But what we tell our staff is we need to be cognizant and aware of that there's been some significant developments for general fund projects. But when we talk about general fund projects, that's all three of these projects that we're talking about this evening. First and foremost, over the last several years, we've had significant property tax legislation in Iowa. And if you wanted to take away of that, it has reduced the city's annual property tax growth. And it's also reduced our emergency levies that we used as contingencies in the event that we needed to fund city services as well. So it's made things more challenging. We're not arguing with the policymakers on that, but the reality is that it has lessened the city's property tax growth as well. And we also want to be upfront when we've talked about at recent council meetings is we are projecting an operating deficit at this time on a preliminary basis of over $368,000. Now, to summarize this, what I would say is that it's mainly attributed to inflationary increases, state property tax legislation, and I would also like to spend a little bit of time. We've talked quite a bit about the ambulance, but I think it's important to realize that the ambulance provides an excellent service to our community. It's an essential service. In addition, the ambulance also provides excellent services to rural Marion County, rural Mahaska County, and provides essential transport services to Pella Regional Hospital. My point is this is our third year that we took over the ambulance, so we have some growing pains that we're experiencing, and it's natural. But equally important to note, when we took over the ambulance, there's other entities that use the ambulance on this. And what we've been trying to do is form partnerships with them to help the funding of the ambulance services, and we made significant progress on those endeavors. But the reality is until the current service levels are defined for the ambulance, it's likely that we're going to be chasing somewhat of some deficits for it as well. So I want to make sure that we keep that in mind. That'll be a significant item during the upcoming budget process as well. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Let's get right into numbers on it, and we have some good news to report here this evening. As far as the plan that we're considering this evening, the projects, as you can see, it's just slightly below $49.8 million. One of the things that we are excited about this evening is we are presenting a balanced plan financially, which means that expected revenues for the plan match expected expenditures for the plan this evening. So let's go through those very briefly. On the revenue side, we have that local option sales and services bond at $17 million, city cash contributions at $5.5 million, as well as the GEO bond infrastructure that we're looking at just slightly above the 6.6 at $6.7 million. If you were to add all those up, it comes up to roughly about $29 million. So if you wanted to look at the plan as presented this evening, the city's financial contribution would be somewhere between the $29 to $30 million mark. Funds raised by other entities are just shy of $20 million, or the $20 to $21 million range on that as well. As far as the Recreation Center, we're going to be going over a project budget that we have established of just shy of $33.8 million for the Recreation Center this evening. The Community Center, we have preliminary continued estimates that we're still in the process of getting updated cost on the Community Center, and that's one of the items that we anticipate having for December 17th, but we still have the latest estimate. It was $8.3 million, but our engineer is currently getting updated estimates on those. And the infrastructure projects total just over $7,719,000. So once again, total project cost of $49,795,000, and we are presenting a balanced plan this evening. We've spent a lot of time talking about it in the past, and as council is well aware, this is probably the first time that we've shown a balanced plan on it, and it just comes from the work that we've done since July 2nd on this. And more importantly, when you look at this, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank everyone that has donated their time, effort, and resources to this plan, but when you look at the private pledges, both for the community center as well as the indoor recreation center, just shy of $19.6 million. That's a significant amount of fundraising that's been performed in this community. So we're very appreciative of the level of support that we have for these projects. So Mandy, let's go ahead, please.
Hold up, I want to interrupt a second. Mandy, can you pull up that that slide with the contributors slide? Because I just want to say something about some of the contributors to this project. So Pella Corporation, when we, way back in April 2022, Pella Corporation had pledged $6 million for this project. And I just want to remind people how important it is for the city of Pella to work with are large corporations. Let's just take Pella Corp, for instance. In the last few years, so Liberty Street Kitchen, they spent $3.5 million to create that restaurant. The Market is a $5 million project that the Pella Corporation and their owners have paid for in this community. The South Main project, they bought that for $900,000 from Central College to get that project going and invested more in that. Prairie Ridge, out of Prairie Ridge, they purchased 150 acres of ground that has now become a community, a huge community. There's 93 houses out in the first phase. Everything else is coming. There's just going to be more. And so it's crazy for us to think that we shouldn't be listening to what they want us to help them do with this project. They've pledged the $6 million for the rec center. I think they've pledged $100,000 for the community center, which, by the way, both of those community center pledges are contingent upon the rec center happening. PPI, I just put it up there because it's a kind of a fun story. So I went to PPI. This is way back in 2021. Met with their leadership board on a Tuesday about 11 o'clock. I asked them for $1 million for the project. At 8 o'clock the next morning, I had an email said, "Hey, we approved that." It's like the quickness to their response is pretty incredible. So that was a good vote that, hey, we are interested in this project. Vermeer Manufacturing. Oh, the one thing I wanted to go back to Pella, because I forgot this. Everybody knows the Smash Park story here, right? What would happen to a business like that in almost every community across this country? I give all the credit in the world to the original investors that had the idea and invested a lot of money to make that project happen. A great facility for this community. It didn't work. Unfortunately, for whatever reasons, it didn't work. But where else could you find a company like Pella that would step up, buy that building, going to reopen that within 6 months? That's pretty amazing. And so for us to, if we don't go through with this project, then I'm going to have to go back to Pella Corp and say, hey, you guys have done all this for our community. And by the way, I guess we don't want your $6 million. We just can't make ourselves go there. So that, I think, most other communities, a building like that would sit for 10 years and get dilapidated and run down. It doesn't happen here in Pella. And so I want you to understand that and think about that. Same way with Vermeer Manufacturing. They pledged $5 million the first time around. After we had the discussion and we needed more money, so I went back to the Vermeer Charitable Foundation, met with their board, and I don't know, I think it was a week after I was there, met a week later, they informed me that they had upped their pledge to the rec center by another $1 million, so they became $6 million contributors to the project. On top of that, they also pledged $500,000 for the community center. Pretty phenomenal. We cannot take for granted what we have in this community and why it's not a pipe dream to think about having this kind of a facility in Pella. We can get this done. We have the support to get this done. The other thing, Vermeer, and I already mentioned this, but they, on their own, orchestrated a land swap so that we can do the road without having to think about eminent domain. We can have willing property owners to sell the right of way to get that done. And the last one I put up there was just last week. I went to a little dinner, the Pella Community Foundation. Let me read what their if you go to their website, the Pella Community Foundation has been in place for quite a few years now. On an annual basis, they give away hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm sure they're well into the millions of dollars to community organizations through a grant program. So people, nonprofits apply for a grant, they get grant. Well, guess what? The Pella Community Foundation approved a $50,000 grant for the rec center. Now, it's not the biggest, but it's the biggest grant that they've ever given. And so their mission statement, this website says who we are. The mission of Pella Community Foundation is to preserve the heritage and enhance the quality of life for the people of Pella. If that doesn't say exactly what this project is all about, then I don't know how else to say it. And their board, they get it. They got it. I walked out of that meeting with a check for $50,000. So they've already given us the $50,000. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight some of the support. I could put if we put the whole list of support up there, it'd be 4 or 5 pages long of people that have made pledges and already given us money, cash. So anyway, I wanted to kind of highlight why it's so important for us as a city and as a community to work with these organizations that are so willing to step up and help us create the community that we want. Okay, I'm sorry, go back.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Let's talk about how these projects move forward. So this would be in the event the council wants to move forward with both the indoor recreation center and actually the community center. So with that, what we would propose, if you see construction bids and are moving forward with the projects, we would have proposed partnership agreements for both the indoor recreation center as well as the community center. Now, one of the agreements that worked really well for the city was our partnership with Fields of Our Future for the Pella Sports Park. So we would be following the same principles that we've had with the Pella Sports Park. And for those of you on council, which I believe Councilmember DeYoung and Councilmember Van Strylen are familiar with, is we really set principles for the city. What we established in those partnership agreements is we established a maximum city financial contribution was established in the agreement. And one of the big items that we had, and I've been really just felt fortunate for the city and thankful for Fields of Our Future, but we had for that agreement was we had an entity that was responsible for financing and also the risk of loss of private pledges for that project. Worked out extremely well for the city of Pella. It was an incredible amount of risk that was taken, not risk, but they stepped up to the plate where it really helped the city out. If we didn't have that with the Pella Sports Park, it would have been several years more before that sports park was built because we would have had to wait for the pledges to come in and actually have cash on hand. At that point in time, we would have also been faced with increased probably construction inflation for the project as well. So that's one of the items we don't talk about, but from my standpoint, from a financial standpoint, that really made that project happen. What we're going to propose for both of these projects, if we move forward, is those same principles would be extended to both the indoor recreation center and the community center as well. So Mandy, let's go ahead, please. Now, as far as the infrastructure is concerned, once again, we have total estimated cost of $7.5 million. And what this involves is the extension of University Street from 240th Avenue out to 250th Avenue. And then we also have the extension of Baseline Drive as well. And some of the other items that are included within this project included an additional water main that's going to actually enhance fire flows on the southeast side of our community. And we also have a sanitary sewer infrastructure. We'll be going over those itemized costs. But I would also like to mention, when you look at the indoor recreation center and the location of that in the northwest corner of the Pella Sports Park, is located in several I'd say entities that are located in the eastern portion of our town, the Pella Schools, Pella Christian Schools, Lely, as well as Premier Corporation as well. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. We'll get right into the finances on it. Now, the financing sources from the city standpoint would be looking to issue what's called an essential corporate purpose bond. It would be a general obligation bond that would be paid through property taxes. Total of that bond is roughly $6.7 million. As Mayor DeWart stated, we've also received a federal grant on the project of just right ahead of $1 million. So we had total revenue sources at $7.7 million. As far as the estimated cost for the projects, the University Street extension is just shy of $4.8 million. The Baseline Drive extension is just over $1,077,000. The water main extension is just shy of $765,000, and the sanitary sewer infrastructure totals just over right at $1,082,000. So we have an estimated cost of $7.7 million. We spent approximately $157,000 to date on the project and engineering fees for this project. If we were to proceed and issue and construct these projects, and if the projects do total $7.7 million, we could have a projected debt service levy increase to pay for the back of this bond of roughly 52 cents. So before I go on and the infrastructure and go on to the rec center at the community center first and then the rec center, is there any questions over the planned infrastructure phase of this project?
I'm assuming that if we have questions after the meeting, we have the opportunity to address them with you.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'll go a step further. Since this is an informational meeting on it, we're not only going after the meeting, but before we get to the 17th, city administration, I'll be available to answer any questions that council may have as well. So
Okay.
there'll be ample opportunities to ask questions on this information. All righty. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Let's talk about the community center and specifically the financial parameters that we established for the community center on July 2nd. The project budget that council established was $8.3 million. It included the $5.5 million contribution from the city of Pella. And we also made a requirement of the fundraising component of roughly $2.8 million. Now, with this, we also stated, informing friends of the community center, that the council would be approving the final layout of the community center. And we also made a requirement that the private funds will need to be financed by a non-city of Pella entity, and that we would also have to approve the financing plan before approving construction contracts. But we also informed the Friends of the Community Center that the community center must demonstrate that the current operating subsidy will not increase due to the cost due to the project that's being proposed. So Mandy, let's go ahead, please, and let's talk about the community center. What's involved in the community center, this $8.3 million project, is a complete renovation of the interior of the community center. In addition, we have a wing addition proposed on the southeast side of the facility that will also hold an elevator addition as well. And we do have a rendition of the community center up here for council's review. So let's go ahead, Mandy, and show where we are to date. To date, we have total project revenues of $8,316,000. The city's contribution is $5.5 million. The Friends of the Community Center have informed me verbally on it, and we've been working very closely with them as far as fundraising is going extremely well for the project. But really from the city standpoint, what we're focusing on is that partnership agreement. And if you recall, we said the agreement for the community center would be structured after the Pella Sports Park. And in that case, we had an agreement with the Fields of Our Future that they would finance the pledges for the project. They'd also be responsible for the risk of loss. And how that agreement worked is we went through the construction portion of the project. Each party paid a portion of the construction expenses for the project. Prior to getting there, we reviewed these financing plans for them, and the city approved that as well. We anticipated we would do something very similar to the community center. So when we talk about those pledges, we're really talking about our contractual relationship that would need to be formed with the Friends of the Pella Community Center on the project, and they would be responsible for that $2.8 million. So the city would be removed from that, and we would not be faced the risk of loss from the private pledges. We have estimated renovation costs that our engineers are still in the process of updating. We anticipate we're going to receive those next week on the project, and they'll be available the week of December 17th as well. Now, as far as the operating subsidy for the community center, currently the annual operating subsidy is just below $365,000 a year. We believe when the project gets constructed that we will have increased utilities and maintenance and operational cost on that. But we also believe that that will be offset by less insurance payments for the facility as well once we update the facility. So right now we feel comfortable stating that we believe that the current operating subsidy will not increase for the facility as a result of this project. So before we move on to the indoor recreation center, is there any questions? Or actually I have a few more items to cover for the community center. Andy, if you would go on, please. As far as the expenditures to date, we've expended just shy of $153,000 on the project. And what we had, unfortunately, that's one of the items our engineer is still computing on, is we don't have an amount that it would cost to seek construction bids for the project as of this. We anticipate having that next week as well. One of the items that we have, and we've been informed by the Friends, is they're still soliciting pledges, and it's going extremely well for the Friends. But one item that we're planning to do from the city standpoint is applying for an enhanced Iowa grant for the project to the amount of $500,000. And they'd like to have the commitment as we review and progress on this project, that if the city receives an enhanced Iowa grant, that we will not decrease our funding for the project, that maintains at the $5.5 million. And really that $500,000 could be used towards benefiting the project. That's one of the items the Friends have requested from city administration. So Mandy, I think that's everything that we have for the community center. Is there any questions on the community center?
You said some of the operational offset was the savings in insurance. Yeah. If I recall, we were having difficulty insuring it because it was, let's say, age and disrepair. Are we paying for any insurance on it currently?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll have that information for you on the 17th to make sure that we have it. And we did, you are correct, because of the age of the facility, the needed repairs. And I would say it wasn't just the Pella Community Center. It was basically for any facility in the state of Iowa that's over 50 years old that hasn't been brought up to the latest codes throughout the state of Iowa. It's my understanding from the insurance industry, there was significant premium increases for buildings all across the state. This deals with the ratio that occurred in eastern Iowa in 2021. And so we are not the only entity that faced issues with older buildings. But equally important to note is once we updated the facility, we've been told by our carrier that our insurance rates or premiums should decrease as well. So looking at this from a snapshot, the increased utilities for that wing addition, we believe will be offset by the insurance decreases on the project. That's our position now on the project.
So in other words, just circling back around, you're telling us that at the completion of this project, it will be operational and a revenue neutral.
Well, yeah, let me, Mandy, if we can go back just to make sure we're talking about it.
That's why I asked about
No, it's a little play on words, and I hate that when staff plays on words. It's not necessarily revenue neutral. Currently, the operating subsidy for the community center is just shy of $365,000. What we're saying is that 365, we do not believe will significantly increase because of the result of the project. In fact, we believe that the utility increase as a result of that wing addition and the additional insurance expense will be offset by the high risk, not high risk, but the additional premiums.
You're just saying there's no change to the operations.
That's the best way to describe it.
Project.
That's what we believe now.
Okay.
Because realistically, none of the facilities, of our facilities that we collect revenue for, break even.
Well, I'm aware of that. That's part of my trepidation.
Well, this one either.
Yeah, when you walk around this slide, it's a fast forward, but the rec center operating subsidy minus the existing two-door pool operating subsidy equals what in comparison to this 365?
That's an excellent question, and I have it in about 2 slides.
I know, but I was wanting to hear it out loud when we're saying.
Yeah, let me look that up real quick. Dr. Carl's done for operating subsidy for the rec center. Take me just a little bit of time, and Mandy.
I think it's the last slide.
Yeah, if you can go to slide number 32, please. If you have it right there, let's talk about the rec center operating subsidy. Yeah. Usually I do, but I don't want to be misstated on it. Now, we've hired Ballard King to look at the rec center and develop an operations plan for the city. And actually, there's 4 versions, not 4 versions, but there's 4 alternatives that it'll look at. Once we get through the rec center and you see what we're planning to bid, if council proceeds with the bid package, it correlates to the amenities proposed. This one was based off 4 gymnasiums, a competition swimming pool, as well as a turf field. And just to explain this, the first year operating on this, they projected a deficit, a subsidy of $435,000. They projected additional need for to stash away approximately $71,000 a year in capital expenses, which is $71,000. We believe that if you look at the indoor pool, the operational subsidy for the indoor pool is approximately $370,000. We believe $185,000 of that subsidy would be used if it was closed. That could be used to help offset the cost of the proposed indoor recreation center. So if we look at the first year, it would be over just about $322,000. The first year of the rec center is $322,000. With current subsidy for the community center is $365,000. If you were to look at the 5 years forecasted in the operation feasibility study, what we believe that net operating subsidy would be is if you averaged it over 5 years, would be just shy of $213,000. And that was based off the Ballard King report, plus what we believe would be the subsidy, that the savings the city would realize by closing the indoor pool of $185,000.
But we can't close the indoor pool. I mean, that's.
If you build a new one.
No, but if you build only a competition pool, that water is going to be way too cold for people who want to use it for aerobics and that sort of thing, because that water is colder than that people want to use it for just, lollygag around like old people such as us.
And Councilmember Van Strylen, that's a very good point. And once again, I have that, actually, I'll make sure I address that point specifically, because with the rec center, we have a few items to cover, and including the scope of what's being proposed for seeking construction bids as well. And that point will be taken up. I'll make sure I address that.
This was for 4 gyms?
It was 4 gyms, and it was also for a turf field. And I have an exhibit here shortly that I'll show you that corresponds to this operating subsidy, but it was for the turf field and competition swimming pool, 4 full-size gymnasiums, 78,000 square foot facility. But we also have one for the full build of the facility as well as the base plan that we have, and they're all a little bit different. I wanted to, for discussion purposes, this is the one that we chose this evening. So there's been a lot of work on the operation side for the rec center. Mandy, if we can go back to the community center. So if we could go back to the last slide, once again, that we have a project data expenditures of $153,000. Our engineers are still in the process of providing us an estimate on the cost to seek construction bids on this. And once again, the Friends of the Community Center have requested that if we received an enhanced Iowa grant for the project, that we would not decrease the city's financial contribution of $5.5 million for the project. So with that, before we head on to the rec center, are there additional questions on the community center?
Help me understand the last clause there. I assume we need to know the logic behind that.
With the fundraising efforts, with the total project that cost of $2.8 million, the thoughts would be, and this is more along the lines, and I would say both groups have been excellent to work with, but I've taken it from a financial standpoint. If you recall, we're stating that we're going to have revised cost estimates on the project. A year ago, when we had the bids on the community, not the estimated cost of $8.3 million for the community center, the thought is if the project, say, for instance, comes in at over $9 million and we receive an enhanced Iowa grant for the project, there'd be an additional deficit of about $700,000, for instance, on that. So if we decrease the city's contribution and take the enhanced Iowa grant, then that means additional funds would have to be raised for the project. That's what they're asking, is that we don't use the enhanced Iowa grant to supplant the city's financial contribution. We maintain consistency at the $5.5 million. And that request was important to both groups that fundraise for this. And the rec center has made a similar request as well.
I don't think it's an unusual request to police or out of line.
Okay, Mandy, let's go ahead and talk about the rec center, and let's talk about the financial conditions we established on July 2nd for the rec center. At that time, we were talking about a total budget of $41.2 million, a city contribution of $17 million, private funds of $24.2 million. Similar to the community center, council approval, proposed concept and final design of the facility. Private funds, $24 million in this case, would need to be financed by a non-city Pella entity, similar to the conditions that we gave the community center. And the city would need to approve the financing plan before approving construction contracts, very similar to the community center, and this is very similar to the Pella Sports Park as well. And then we also stated that the project must demonstrate it will operate on a revenue neutral basis and not require an operating subsidy from the city. So Mandy, let's go ahead and dive into the recreation center. Now we have a few exhibits here showing the exterior of the facility. A lot of work has gone into this facility as far as design of the facility. Let's go ahead, Mandy. As far as the development concept, once again, the indoor recreation center will be located in the northwest corner of the Pella Sports Park, and it's also located in very close proximity to several entities that surround it as well. Mandy, let's go ahead and very briefly cover the site plan for the project. And one of the questions that we tend to get at the staff level is parking. If you've ever visited the Pella Sports Park, it is very busy and parking is a need. And we've actually had a request from Fields of Our Future to install additional parking for the project. This would be the full plan for the parking spaces at the complex, including the south parking lot. Currently, the south parking lot is listed as an alternate for the project as well. But again, that has been a need or an expressed need to the city, and we did receive strong support from Fields of Our Future for additional parking at the sports park as well, including building proceeding this alternate. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as far as the financing for the projects, what we have is a city contribution of $17 million. We've received to date, the city has cash on hand, funds that have been received by pledges of $1,285,320. What we will be looking at is if you look at the total pledges received, that's somewhere right around almost $16.8 million. There's outstanding pledges, and that number will likely be higher by the time we come to the 17th on this as well. But there's an entity that will be a nonprofit entity called Pella Rec that will be financing almost $5 million of pledges. Very similar to the Friends of the Community Center. They would privately finance that. They would share an allocation of the construction expenses for the project. And they'd also be responsible for the risk of loss for the project as well, and the pledges as well. So that's a significant item. Similar to the Friends of the Community Center, that's a big item for the city, and it really enables the city to proceed on both of these projects, because absent this agreement, you would be forced to seriously consider that you'd have to wait until those pledge payments came in and the city had cash on hand in order to remove the risk of loss on the pledge payments for the city. So we have total project revenues of $33,759,000, or just shy of $760,000. And we've established a preliminary budget for the rec center of $33,760,000. And I'll explain that here very soon on how we came up with that project budget. But Mandy, let's go ahead, please, and talk about the remaining items that we have. To date, a significant amount of engineering has occurred on the project. Over $2,185,000 on the project. There's an estimated cost of an additional $140,000 to prepare the bid packages for the project on this. It is important to note, and I'm going to try to explain this, but if you recall, we said, and this is something for those that were on council at the time when we built the Pella Sports Park, we incorporated a method in bidding the project where we used bid alternates. So what that said to the bid projects is we went out with a base bid project saying that on this, the city intends to build at a minimum this level of a project. But if bids come in really good, and or if we have additional revenues, we'll build alternates or additional items on this as well. We plan to use that same strategy for both the rec center and the community center. But tonight, what we're talking about is we have a total estimated project range cost of $32.7. That depending on the bid packages the city council would select goes all the way up to $44.5 million on the project as well. Our resources, if you recall, are at $33,760,000, so they're above the minimum engineering estimate for the projects on the various plans that we have here. And I'll explain this in further detail as well. And again, very similar requests that we received to the community center, the Friends of the Community Center, the Pella Rec has made a request that the city will not decrease its financial contribution if we receive an Enhanced Iowa grant. As council is aware, we approved an application for an enhanced Iowa grant of $500,000. That presentation is going to be on December 20th of this month as well. So with that, again, it's a very similar request that we would not decrease our financial contribution. Any questions on the finances before we start talking about alternates and bid alternates and layout plans for the rec center? And once again, rest assured, there'll be ample opportunities to ask questions as we proceed through on both of these projects. But Mandy, let's go ahead, please. What we have here, and this is probably what most people envision when we talk about the full plan for the Pella Recreation Center. This is the full plan. Our engineers have actually given us a range of cost on the plan that range, depending on bids, they believe it could be realistic, getting priced anywhere from $40.6 million to $44.5 million. Previously, we've chosen to go the midpoint on the bid estimates, but both options are a valid engineering estimate for the plan. Total cost, full facility is 78,000 square feet. It would include 4 gymnasiums, competition swimming pool, also a recreation swimming pool, along with a warm water pool for water aerobics as well. And that was similar to what Mr. Van Strylen pointed out as a need for that as well on it, because the competition swimming pool, is my understanding, operates at lower temperature degrees than the recreation pool. We also have 2 levels of the facility. On the upper level would be a walking track that would go around the gymnasiums here. You'd be able to overlook both the basketball area. Would have left the workout spaces that we have here on here. So looking at the walking track, it's approximately 9 laps to make 1 mile for the proposed plans. In addition, there's various other amenities associated with the plan with this as well as additional workout areas for the plan, along with kitchen facilities and restroom facilities and the associated locker rooms. But the full plan, the estimated cost is between $40 million and $44.5 million. If the council proceeds with seeking construction bids, we will get a construction bid on this plan. Before we move on from the full plan, is there any questions that council may have on this item or the proposed full plan? Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the base plan. The base plan would be the plan that we would tell the bidders that at minimum the city intends to construct this level of the facility. However, there will be several alternates that will be sought for the facility as well. The base plan has an estimated cost, once again, the range of $32.7 million up to $35.7 million, and it has an estimated square feet. The square footage is roughly 63,000 square feet. For the base plan, it's 2 full-size gymnasiums, competition swimming pool, and we have turf field located right here. So that would be the base plan. Everything else would be an alternate that we would also receive construction plans off of. But if you look at the various components, potentially adding 2 gymnasiums, additional pool on your parking lots, there'll be several alternates that City Council should be able to size this project to match the financial resources of the city. Finally, let's talk about that mint plan, we called it. And that was really the plan that we chose to talk about the operating subsidy or proposed operating subsidy at this point. I want to say that's on a preliminary basis as well. But the mint plan that we called this is actually a turf field, a competition swimming pool, the 4 gymnasiums, and very similar amenities. In fact, the workout space area and the rest of the amenities would be true whether we're building the base plan or full plan. But the mid plan that you see up here has an estimated cost between $37.6 million up to $41 million, and it'd be a 78,000 square foot facility as well. And the point to this exercise is when we go out to talk about seeking bids, it's important to note that there are a lot of aspects or proposed amenities associated with the recreation center. We're going to receive a construction bid on each and every one of those amenities. And that will really allow council to match up the various amenities and plans to the city's financial resources as well. That's the reason why we have several options that we're going to be seeking bids on, if council chooses to seek bids for the project. So before we go on and talk a little bit more about the operating subsidy, is there any questions on proposed layouts?
What was the bottom edition, you said?
What's that?
You had the turf field, the competition pool, what's down below?
Right here?
Yeah.
This is just green space right now with the mid lane. So Yeah, below that would be a parking lot addition on it as well. So that's just green space for the area. All right, Mandy, let's go ahead and talk about the operating subsidy. I want to preface my comments. This is still being a work in progress. The city staff is still working on this. And so some things may change on this by the time you get to December 17th. But if we had to go with the information that we have right now, for discussion purposes, we're picking the mid-plan on this. And all these numbers are based off Ballard King's operational feasibility study for the recreation center. It is important to note from an operational standpoint with this, what Ballard King forecasted is a 5-year operational forecast. And the operation subsidy that they forecasted was between a net of $213,000 all the way up to the first year would be $322,000 on that. That includes the net closure of the city's indoor pool as well on this. So again, I think we've covered this. Now, as far as projected city operational levy ranges, they'd be from 31 cents up to 47 cents potentially on this. But I would also state this is something that we're still working on. Ballard King, when they made their analysis, it was based on city staff operating the facility as well. There's still a few items that we want to take a look at. So these items may change by the time we get to the 17th, but as of right now, we are short on the standard that council established on July 2nd for this item. So Mandy, I believe we have a few more items to consider on slides here. As far as I think we're talking also about the operational, did we have information on concerning the economic analysis that was performed by Ballard King? If we did, and I could state this verbally, and I thought I had this slide in. Okay. We'll go briefly over as far as the feasibility study, as far as the membership rates. We received this question quite frequently. These are the membership rates that were proposed in the feasibility study that really serve as the basis for determining the projected revenues for the indoor recreation center as well. But that will be up to the discretion of the Pella City Council. It is important to note in support of the rec center, in addition to the feasibility study, we had 2 other studies that were performed. They were the economic impact studies of the recreation center. The first one was what would be the impact of constructing University Street and the full build of the recreation center. And I may be a little bit off on the data, but it was estimated that it would bring a significant, roughly 700 jobs on that as well. There's a significant economic development, significant economic impact to the state of Iowa of roughly about $100 million. That may be a little bit off on the construction impact. For Marion County, it's roughly about $63 million on total economic impact on just the construction and economic impact of having the rec center as well as University Street. Now, they're full build on both projects, so there was a significant impact. Ballard King also looked at the economic impact of the Pella Rec Center just from an operational standpoint, and they forecasted between the competition swimming pool and the 4 gymnasiums, we are to hold 38 events, is what they call them. These would be tournaments on there. They forecasted that the annual economic impact of the rec center would be about $4.9 million of benefit to the community as well. So as we look at operating subsidies, it's important to realize that we state this often when we talk about quality of life projects. They have a lot of value to the community, but a lot of things don't necessarily translate when you try to estimate those costs from a direct financial impact to the city, but there is a lot of benefit to the community. Ballard King thought it was roughly about $5 million annually on the annual economic impact of tournaments at the facilities. So with that, Mr. Mayor, Mandy, as far as the final slide, this is a lot of information. We know that if there are questions, we'd be more than happy to answer any questions that the council may have. In addition, before we get to the 17th, if you have questions, I'd be happy to take whatever time is necessary to make sure we get the council the information they need to make an informed decision on the 17th. So, Mayor, I believe that concludes our presentation on the side.
All right. Thanks, Mike. As usual, great job. A lot of information. So the purpose, obviously, of this exercise tonight was to prepare to vote on whether we go get bids on our next meeting. So Obviously, I think it's really important that we go get bids. You know, the way we'll structure those bids is with alternates, and so at this point, we don't have an exact number. I've been asked by several people that I've talked to about helping with this project, you know, how much do you need? And so I can't really answer that question until we have a real number. So that's what we need to, we're gonna have to decide whether we go to bids or not. So I don't know what, I'll listen to the opposition to going to bid. One opposition to going to bid that I can answer before you even ask it. So it showed that it cost us $140,000 of shy of Hatterdy to go to bids. Well, today I had a conversation with one of our funders, and they will pay that $140,000 with no risk. If we don't go, if we get the bids and we don't end up doing a project, they're not asking for their money back. They're going to pay the $140,000 cost. So that eliminates one of the concerns about going to bids. There's no additional cost right now. I have a check from them before the 17th to pay for that additional cost to go to bid. So that's one issue that, yeah, we won't have to discuss. So there's really no risk at all for us to go to bids. We are not, by going to bid, we are not signing any contracts. We are not committing to doing any of this. The conversations that I can have, if we go to bids, whatever that number is, if we can't pay for the project based on those real numbers, I can very easily go back to all of our funders, people that want to say, and listen, we tried, we just can't afford it. What I don't want to do is go, before we go to bid, and say, we can't move this project forward despite your generous offer to help us, because city council can't go to bid. Can't get, and that's the next step, is to go to bids. When we get bids, we'll have some time to review them, to figure out where we're at financially. And I've said from day one, I will not push a project that we cannot afford. So just one other thing, Mandy, I did some deep dive into our budget. Property for our budget, one thing about Mike, when he does a budget, it's very detailed, a lot of work goes into it. Since I've been part of this leadership, when Mike does a budget, we're going to hit our budget. He's going to hold all departments accountable to their budget, and we're going to hit our budget. And almost every year, we've actually done better than our budget. So I did a little deeper research. So our budget for this year, we project $7,210,000 of property tax. Okay, and property tax is used. We have great utilities that generate their own revenue through user fees, and they make money. They sustain themselves. So the property tax is what other departments within our community don't have a revenue source. So that's what the property tax pays. So $7.2 million. Our police and fire department cost us about $3.4 million between the two. Our library, the budget for this year is $783,000. There's planning and zoning, it's $337,000. Public Works is $89,000, because Public Works gets a lot of revenue from other sources, road use tax and those things. Administration is $800,000. Ambulance, our budget for this year was $598,670. The one that I'd like to talk about is the community services budget, which this project is part of that. So I already said the library, but if you look up there, currently our community center, our subsidy to operate the community center is $364,000. To operate the indoor pool is $370,000. To operate the outdoor pool is $188,000. The golf course, the budget was $207,000. The soccer complex, the sports park, and then our parks department, all the beautiful flowers and the tulips and everything. And so, I guess what I want to say is, the city of Pella has been subsidizing these things for years and years and years. The only thing that's different now is the ambulance. The only reason that we are talking about deficits is because, and please don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying the ambulance, it's a wonderful utility. It just costing us a lot of money. So the only reason that we are looking at a deficit right now is our ambulance. And I believe we will get it figured out. We're in the infancy stage of having that department. So we're trying to work through it, trying to figure out what best we can do, and Mike has talked about that. Otherwise, all of these things, we've been doing this for years at the city of Pella. These are all quality of life projects. This is what makes a community, makes our community. And so if I've heard talk that the rec center is going to create an operating deficit, we just saw the projected is $320,000 a year based on Valley King. I don't believe that'll be the case because Pella always outperforms on these. But anyway, so if we're going to hold that to a higher standard than all of these other projects, so we're okay investing $8 million into the community center that we're subsidizing for $3? And again, I'm not disparaging. I'm all for all of these. I want us to continue to subsidize them because they are what makes our community great. But are we going to hold this project to a higher standard than we hold to all of the other ones that we're working on? So that, and again, that's something for one thing, if we build this rec center, we won't be talking about operations till 2027. By the time we get it built and it's open. And our financial position at the city of Pella, when I came on as mayor, we had $32 million in the bank. We still have $30 million in the bank. We've spent millions of dollars on infrastructure over the last 5 years. We've subsidized all of these departments for the last 5 years. So anybody that says we're in financial straits is just not true. We in our checks we sent today, we have a check for $300,000 to go to Central College. Again, 100% support that for the pickleball. I don't recall anybody gnashing their teeth wondering how we were going to pay for it. We just threw it as an unbudgeted item in Mike's lap and said, "Here, figure it out," and we will. So I want us to be fair when we start talking about this particular project against all the other projects, against all the other things that that our property tax subsidizes, and that's all included in all of these different departments and amenities that we have. And so I'm asking for us to move the bid forward. We're not committing to anything. We've got somebody that'll pay the extra cost to do the bid. So there's absolutely no risk to us to get a bid. If it's $50 million, if it's $30 million, then we can react.
Are you asking for?
I'm just vote? No, not a vote. No, we're going to vote next time. I'm just asking for you to consider supporting to go to bids after what we've said, because whatever there is a lot more I can tell you, and hopefully you don't underestimate the ability of this community to support this project. There is a lot of money to be had yet.
And we can call you if we have questions.
You can call me, come to my office, I'll have all the conversation anybody needs to have.
My question is, do we need more of a commitment to be able to go to those people that are holding back?
No, I don't think so. I think as long as we go to bids, we'll get, I don't know, can you do the timeline for us again on that process?
Yeah. As far as the timeline that we have, the council were to seek bids on these projects. The rec center would likely be bid sometime in the month of March on it as well. Council would probably be making a decision on that project sometime in the month of late April, early May on the project. Construction would start if we proceeded on that during later summer months on it, and we'd be building the foundation, doing a lot of the grading on the site later this year. It's a 2-year construction time frame. So as far as the overall time period, if we saw bids in the spring, we'd be likely opening up the rec center in the summer, potentially fall of 2027. The community center, if we seek bids on the community center, that project would likely be bid late summer on it. Renovation would start in the fall on it. And it's our understanding that renovation could take somewhere between 12 to 18 months on it as well. So we aren't as far along with those types of details on the community center as we are on the rec center. The infrastructure portion of the project still ready to go out bids on those as well. And we anticipate the infrastructure will be done within the time frame of the rec center within that 2-year time frame. So basically, if you're looking at construction on the rec center, that would be taking place the later half of 2025, setting all over 2026, and probably for the first portion of 2027 on the rec center. And the community center, once again, would be the fall of 2025, take about 12 months, and potentially be completed by the fall of 2026.
With my experience, that's why I asked the question, whenever we bid a big project, if we're dragging that out into the spring, you're not going to get the bid that you're going to get in January.
I think the time frame for bids is pretty good right now. We would get, I think you said bids by March. That's when companies are, and there's a ton of interest in this project, obviously. I've been contacted by some of the really big contractors. So I think we'll be in a good bidding environment. But
Yeah. I
don't know until we open the bids.
Yeah. The rec center would be bid somewhere between about 60 days after council's decision on it. So it'll be sometime in February, March on that. And then by the time you get through the evaluation and the number of alternates that we have, we believe it'll be sometime in March or April, council will be likely making decisions on the project.
In all my fundraising efforts, whenever I've talked to people, I've said, I want you to make a pledge, but I don't want you to give money now until we approve this. Well, as you can see, $1.2 million is already in the bank for the city, so. And I don't know, Patty, how much, if cash you guys have taken in on the community center.
Probably about 350,000.
Yeah, so you've already taken in some cash too.
We have pledges beyond that.
Yeah.
Cash.
Same, almost $17 million, almost 1.3 is cash in the bank, and the rest is pledged, signed. We would have people sign and pledge.
I'll correct that, 428,000. I did have those numbers.
So how much raise as of
We're about just under 1.6 million in pledges and donations and commitments.
How are your pledges structured? Are they a 2-year pledge, 5-year pledge?
It's between, we're offering anywhere from 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
We have some 3-year pledges, some 5-year pledges. We have some pledges that are already executing. So.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's a good question, but I think the key to remember is the agreement will be that the pledges will be funded by someone other than the city. So that, the way Mike describes it, as we would get into construction on both projects and get a bill for, let's say, $500,000, $250 of that would be paid by the city's funds and $250 by the agreement. So the financing of the pledges is off the cities. That's done by someone else.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any idea of how many people are going to be members, really committed members?
That's a very good question, Councilmember Butler. The operation plan that we had this evening for the turf auction, we believe that number is 475 would be the turf that we talked about, the operating, but it depends. The memberships depends on what amenities are associated with it. So generally, a rule of thumb is take a while to explain the various options, but if we have a recreation pool, that membership number will be higher for the recreation pool than the turf field.
I'm sure Ballard King, it's buried in there, 60-page report about the number of memberships. One thing, we've talked about this before, but the Pella PRC building that's currently open for some recreation, it's part daycare, part, they have, I want to say 600 and some members maybe there. That will close, and you know, it's another positive to this whole plan is that would close, and Pella Corporation is anticipating expanding daycare into the spaces that are now recreation, which certainly is another need of the community, additional daycare. Any other comments, questions? All right, then we will move on to designation of an official newspaper for 2025.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'm actually going to turn this item over to our city clerk and HR director, and Mandy, if you'd like to walk council through this item, please.
Sure, yes, this is an annual designation that we make. We have to name an official newspaper for all of our patrol publications. The Marion County Express has been our newspaper since 2022. They have made a request to be, again, the official newspaper for 2025, and the Des Moines Register has as well. So since we have two requests, thought we would bring it to you to policy and planning before we put it on for formal approval.
Does anybody see a need to change?
I see no need to change.
I agree.
You're on the next agenda.
That's short.
That was good.
All right, Mr. Mayor, again, this is the interactive portion of the meeting where it's a chance to ask the status of any of the city's projects. These are the items that are on my list, and we anticipate these items are likely to going to be sometime. Due to the large agenda on the 17th, there's a possibility that a majority of these items may be pushed back to the month of January, just to be upfront on that. We have Mandy for December 17th, in addition to the facility plan and the decision to seek construction bids. I believe we have 10 public hearings.
10 public hearings, and right now, potential 8 ordinances beyond the public hearings. So we have a full agenda.
I believe we need snacks.
So
It's not very nice just pre-Christmas to do that. Well, I know P&Z approved a whole bunch of rezoning, so I knew we'd be seeing it.
Mr. Nardini, can we add the water situation to this list?
yeah, Council Member Butler, I think we have the water utility update, and we'll be, for that, what we're planning on doing is we'll hopefully have an update on the city's Jordan Wall number 2 that we talked about in November. In addition, we'll also plan on having a discussion, just an update on the service line, the lead water service line replacement programs as well. Hopefully, there may be some news out of the EPA on final rules on those as well. So we're hoping to have that update, but we'll plan on doing that as well. That's included in what we would call the water utility update.
Oh, it's on that business, it's not on this one here. It's not the one on my agenda. I see it there, I'm sorry.
No, that's no problem.
Any movement on conference center Lost Landing being available for rent?
We'll have an update on that as soon as that's on the list. So we'll hit that. A lot of these items, I would say there's been a considerable amount of work done at the staff level on it. It's just getting them for council's consideration right now. So we're working on it. We anticipate that'll be discussed most likely in January.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
For Brandon Horst Carlstone. All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Greenwood.
Yes.
Carlson. Van Strylen.
Yes.
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 We are adjourned.